Hello and welcome to part 2 of this pop-up critical thinking skills lecture. I'm Kelly Brooks and today we're going to look at Bono's two critical thinking models, the PMI model and the 6 thinking hats. So just to recap, we know that a critical thinker is inquiring, analytical and open-minded. They pay attention to detail. They consider different points of view and evaluate their own position. They develop an accurate understanding of an issue, identify trends and predict outcomes, and consider broader implications and long-term consequences. So let's have a look at the PMI model. So we start with plus. So some plus questions might be, why is this relevant and important? What is so wonderful about this, and how has this changed the way that we think? We then want to ask some minus questions. So, has this been criticised in any way? Is the information you have collected from a reliable source? And what are the biases? Has anything been overlooked in this area? And is this argument flawed? And then finally, interesting. So what can you learn from this, and what have you learnt from this? What is interesting and unusual about this, and what contribution has been made to the field? So this is your PMI model. So whenever you conduct your research, think about it from a plus, a minus and an interesting perspective. Okay, let's move on now and have a look at De Bono's 6 thinking hats. Let's start with the white hat. So this might encourage you to consider the facts and the figures. So the statistics from the data, and also maybe the revenue this industry brings in every year. You might then want to think about the black hat perspective. So the negative influences, the problems, the pitfalls. You might then want to think about the green hat perspective, the creative and lateral ways of thinking. You want to think outside of the box. What's unusual about this? Then you might want to think about the red hat perspective, emotions and feelings. So what are the emotional responses? For example, what's the public consensus? You can find out public opinions on social media such as Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. You might want to know what's happening in the world of business and what their responses are, government responses, international responses. Then there's the yellow hat, constructive and positive thinking. So look at the potential. Finally, the blue hat, so that overview, that summary. Think about what the issue is in general, but then also chunk down and think about the complexity of it. The devil is in the detail. So, thinking about your own work, think about the PMI model. What are the pluses, minuses, and what's interesting about your field of study? Think about it from the 6 thinking hats perspective. So, facts and figures, emotional responses, creative perspectives, pitfalls, possibilities and finer details. So, key vocabulary. So you want to make your sentences more complex. You don't just want simple sentences, you want to add detail and analysis. Include words such as because, since, due to the fact that. This will help to make your sentences more complex. Okay, so we also know that a critical thinker evaluates. They make judgments based on sound evidence. They analyse, they break things down and examine them in detail. They characterise, they mark and distinguish as a characteristic. They synthesise, they bring parts together in a coherent way. They consider reason, so the basis and motive for an action, decision and conviction. And they consider bias, and they are aware of the prejudice and a particular tendency and inclination. So, if you would now like to click on the Padlet link or the QR code, you can engage in a dialogue with other learners around these two models and enter your thoughts and reflections about this. Here are your references and further reading links. So that's the end of part 2. I shall see you in just a minute in part 3. Please don't hesitate to email me if you have any further queries. Thank you and goodbye.